Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Churn Report. Glad you're here for what I know is going to be a really fun conversation with my friend Jeff Carlson of My Resource Library. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good. I'm not so sure it's going to be fun. It could be painful. We never know until these things get off the ground, right, Sid?
Yeah, so we're going to have a little bit of a fun time, though, I think, because we're going to mix this up, guys. This is going to be a little bit different. We're first going to get an update from Jeff about My Resource Library and kind of what's happening with them. And then we're going to do a little round robin Q&A where I'm going to ask Jeff some questions. He's going to ask me some questions, and we're going to see how this flows for the next few minutes. Sound good to you, Jeff?
Sounds perfect. Sounds perfect, Sid. Thanks.
Yeah, man. So I know, nope, you don't really need an introduction, right? Because you're literally one of the most outspoken voices in our industry in a good way. And I appreciate that. So My Resource Library, online virtual library for everybody. And tell us what's kind of been happening with you guys. What's new, what's coming with MRL in the next year?
Well, it's really interesting. And thank you, by the way, for having me on, Sid. I really appreciate this opportunity. But My Resource Library has been looking at the year. COVID has really changed a lot of things. One of which is really expedited the need for furniture dealers to meet the needs of their clients electronically versus in person. And so My Resource Library partnered with another company called Avanto. Matt Danilou and his partner and My Resource Library partnered together to create transaction accelerators. So we actually rolled out a platform where we can actually build e-commerce websites for dealers across the country, and as many different ones as they would need for different standards programs, or from like a work from home or a second day sale. So like, for example, a lot of dealers, when they sell the product, actually, I'll tell you a quick story. This is a very interesting thing about the second day sale. One company in Northern California was celebrating their top 20 customers that buy from them. And Staples has the same top 20. And so how do you have the same top 20? Well, one company was going in and selling them the furniture, the seating, the cubicles, and everything else. And then the other company was going in and selling them the signage, the chair mats, the trash cans, the monitor arms, and so forth. And so what I mean by a second day sale is that there should be a website for each dealership that says, hey, if you want to buy a trash can, we can actually outfit you with that trash can. Those are all high margin ticket items that dealers are just not selling on a regular basis, where they could have a website to do that. So that's where Transaction Accelerator really came into play.
I really like that. And you're absolutely right. I've had several people on that talk about that in a variety of ways. And I think our friend Paul Holland said it best, that you need to be, as a dealer, you need to be an interior integrator. And you need to think about selling anything that goes inside the built environment, inside the office building, including trash cans. Yeah. And I love the concept that you're talking about. You're giving them a platform that they can put that stuff up and they can send it to their customer and they can buy it when they need it or when they want it. And you're right. Those are typically low cost, high margin opportunities that help the dealer expand their profitability and potentially grow their business.
Yeah, it's really interesting because of my background, and we've been deep, you and I are both deep into this industry for many, many years. But when I started as an independent rep, I was dating my now wife, and she came back to my apartment after work one day and said, well, how did your day go? And I said, well, I sold some trash cans. And she said, what do you mean? And at that time, I represented Smith McDonald Desk Accessories.
Yep.
And I said, well, I sold some trash cans to Northwest Airlines. And she said, well, even for her, a designer in the industry, thought, well, that couldn't have been much. And it was like, almost $1 million in trash cans. So it was like a huge check. It was my very first ever windfall. And I do believe that dealers need this service. There are some restrictions that are out there with certain dealers where you're not even allowed to sell your main line on full-blown Shopify experiences. Sure. Well, this is a microsite, so it is allowed by the aligned dealers. They can actually sell their products because you can't Google this shopping experience. You have to know about it.
Sure.
So it's been very, very successful for us. We're working with a bunch of dealers in your market in Texas,
Great.
Some in Northern California and so forth. And we rolled it out with, what's really nice though, is instead of just an e-commerce platform, it also integrates with their business system. So it takes it all the way to purchase order, and it actually gives the user, the client that's buying it, a dashboard back of everything that they've ordered, as well as Google Analytics.
So it sounds like you really simplified the e-com platform for the dealer community, which is great because they need it. Every office furniture dealer should have some form of e-commerce out there, selling something, right? I think the thing that most dealers miss about e-com is they think, this is generalization, okay, but they put up a website and they just expect revenue to come. Well, it's not going to work that way. You actually have to go market it, which means you have to invest in advertising and email campaigns and redirect campaigns and retargeting campaigns, as they're called. And so you need a marketing budget and expertise in that arena to do that, to truly drive revenue and business to the website. If you do that, you're going to get business, but you've got to invest in that.
Yeah, and so these are mostly set up for the standards programs at certain clients, but at the same time, even with those, you have to make the client aware of it. You have to drive awareness of things, and that's not in the dealer's playbook. So they're not used to that. They're used to the client calling them. So this actually can turn that around a little bit and gives them a lot more functionality.
That's great.
But they definitely still need to market it. And that's one of the things we've run into. There's a couple that really have not seen a lot of traffic, but it's because they've only notified one person at the location that they have access to it. They need to notify more. So
you got to market it. However you're doing it, whatever it's for, you have to market it, or it's just going to be something that's up on your website. So you did e-commerce, which is great. I love that. I appreciate how you're supporting the dealer community that way. What else is new or been happening at MRL?
Well, we've got a lot of new stuff, new features coming. We've actually ramped up. During COVID, we've actually tripled in size. We've hired 6 people onto our staff within the last year and a half, as well as we're a little over 84,000 registered users now, and we're experiencing 6,000 logins every day. And those are unique logins, which is fantastic for us. But so the activity and the levels of all the manufacturers on there, we're a little over 400 manufacturers and growing. But what's coming next is we are actually putting together a shopping cart on My Resource Library. It's going to be for finishes and samples of technology, or not technology, sorry about that. It's going to be for finishes and textiles. So that the clients that use My Resource Library, the designers, the dealer salespeople, the dealer designers, they can go in and actually look at a product, choose the upholstery they want with the products, or choose the variety of upholsteries, a variety of finishes from the manufacturers, put it all into a project, and then click a button, and then we will actually parse out all of that directly to the manufacturers for them to fulfill the samples.
Wow.
And so it's not a next day turnaround, but it is a 2-day turnaround. There is no additional cost to the manufacturers to be a part of that with us. So we're not charging by the sample. We're not charging by the lead. We're not charging any of that to them, but there's also no charge to the design community or the dealer community in which to actually take advantage of that.
That's great. I mean, Jeff, I love how you continue to, again, provide resources to our community that enhance the overall experience, if you will, for the dealer, and really helping them do their job more efficiently. That's great.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because you mentioned the dealer. We've been showing the new analytics to a lot of the manufacturers, and we've been actually taking a survey on them as to whether we're a dealer tool or a design tool.
Interesting.
And so we work with 311 pro dealers, but we work with over 600 pro A&D firms. So now, granted, the pro dealer program does cost some money, but the pro design A&D firms, that's free. So it's a little bit easier.
600, Jeff?
Yep.
That 600 A&D firms or 600 individual designers?
firms, individual firms.
Wow.
So, yeah,
That's
so
great.
we've grown substantially in that arena. We also work with 100 what we call pro education accounts. Those are the universities for interior design students. So we work with them. We
Yep.
have over 100 of them that we work with. And actually, I'm really quite proud of this. Auburn University was the first one to add my resource library to their curriculum. So the students actually turn in assignments to the teachers using our project tool.
Wow.
And the other thing I'm quite proud of is that Northern Arizona University's interior design program, after adopting my resource library to their students, has asked me to sit on their board.
Oh, that's great. Look at you. So I'd say you've been busy.
That's an understatement of the year.
I mean, this list just keeps going on. You've been busy. I mean, that's fantastic. And seeing the growth and the adaptation. I was talking to the director of interiors for an A&D firm last week, one of the top 5. And we were talking about return to work and when they were going back to the office and kind of what their strategy was, what they're doing. And he said, well, and we were also talking about, some ideas about how they want to be called on in the future by reps, whether they're independent reps, dealers, carpet reps, fabrics, whatever. And he goes, well, the first thing that everybody needs to get used to is that we're not going to have a library. Yeah. And that we will not be, you will not be able to come update anything. And I went, wow. I mean, I get that that's coming, but when you think about an A&D firm that does not have a library and they're going to reach out for what they need when they need it, it's a big conversation about the future of sales in working with A&D and how we need to adapt to calling on them. And that's just one example, I think, of what we're going to see across the country as things continue to improve and get better as we emerge out of this later this year.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that because what ties along with that, the North American Independent Rep Council, which I started about 6 years ago, and you're very familiar with it. You've met with them many times. And one of your really good friends, Sean Cronin, is a part of that group. But what's really interesting is on one of the calls recently, we've been being told by the reps that a lot of A&D principals are sending out mass emails to all the reps saying, please stop shipping things to my people's homes. And apparently a lot of reps and manufacturers have been shipping samples, just at will when they launch a new product, and they're shipping them to their people's houses. And so you're starting to see, yes, the library is definitely gone, but at the same time, reps are going to have to turn around how they actually do business.
Yeah. And I think this randomly, because I have your address, let me just send you new literature, new samples or whatever to someone's home. That's a behavior that it should never have started. Right.
Yeah, I agreed. But some people are, as well as I do, there's old school people that are in our industry that probably felt that that's the only way that they could actually get mind share was by sending new brochures to 100 different designers. There is a better way.
Yeah. And say that again, Jeff, for the people in the back. Say that again.
There is a better way. Just sending stuff out at will is not a solution.
And there's a better way for a lot of things.
Yes.
There's a better way for us to do a lot of things. And I'm a huge proponent that you need to pay attention. You need to pay attention to what's going on in our industry. And the reality is, and people don't want to admit it, and the active listeners and frequent listeners to the podcast have heard me say this before, but we have to change our thought process here. And the way we did business before is not the way we're going to do business moving forward. And we have to adapt. We have to ask ourselves the tough questions, and we really got to figure out how to move forward and how to be different so that we can continue to sell, because the design firms, they're just not all going to be there at one time. You're not going to get to go back into a library to update and use that as your excuse for dropping by because they're not going to have a library, and they're not all going to be in the office. So when you do host a lunch and learn, you need to anticipate, if you get one, it's probably not even going to be a full hour. I've been hearing stories that you get 15 minutes.
Yep.
And a lot of it's going to be virtual or a combination of in-person and virtual. So you really got to figure out what you're going to do and how you're going to communicate with them and how you're going to engage with them. That's more than, hey, look at my new chair, or look at my new fabric, or, look at this new finish. You're going to have to think differently. And now is the time for big, bold changes, in my opinion.
I would agree with you. And that's where I was going to ask you the same question of, coming back from your organization.
Yeah.
I mean, you're teaching people how to do all of this. Like, we're trying to structure the software to help people do what you're teaching them how to do. And so the changes that you've seen in the last year, how many of your dealers that you consult with and how many other firms, manufacturers even, have come to you in panic saying, Sid, what's this new model look like?
That is a really, really interesting question. And I think how I'm going to respond to that is most of them don't believe there is a new model.
Yeah.
I have heard from more than one person multiple times. Well, when things go back to normal.
Yep.
When things go back to normal, there's no normal. We're not going back to 2019. And I think people don't want to admit that, because as an industry, I'm gonna get on my soapbox, Jeff, as an industry, we've done things exactly the same way for 50 plus years. And so every time something happens in the world, 2008, right? Economic downturn, things happen, we go right back to business as usual. This, though, I believe is the catalyst that will prevent us from going back to business as usual. And thank goodness, finally, transformation is going to happen in our industry in the way that we do business, because we've been doing it the same way for too long.
I would agree. It's very well articulated there too. There is no going back to normal. It's no longer exists. So we've seen it. Granted, what a better way to make sure everybody does get rid of their physical libraries for My Resource Library than to have a pandemic that makes everybody go to home, and then we have a free resource that involves almost 400 manufacturers that are all the key manufacturers of our industry.
Well, that's a great point, because what we need to be doing is embracing digital strategies in our business. And digital strategies in our business are not just using LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. It's about looking holistically as what is our digital strategy? How can I use AR and virtual reality and augmented reality, right? How can I use a tool like My Resource Library? How can I use other digital tools to communicate with my customer and to sell products? Because there are a lot of options out there. And you just look at that one component and you think about how beneficial it is to our industry, to the cost structure, but also to the environment. Brochures cost money, right? But what happens to them? You use them once, you cut out one picture, and then they get donated to a school or they get thrown away, right? Goes into the landfill. Most people will not recycle them. It's put in the trash can. And that's when this becomes really important. I had Brandy Suzowitz with Clear Office. I don't know if you know Brandy, on my podcast a couple of weeks ago. She's kind of a startup company. And when she dropped her statistic that 25% of product that goes into a landfill is office furniture, and the other 25% of product that goes into a landfill is waste from the built environment, it should be shocking to our industry. 50% of what is in a landfill we produce.
It's really interesting, because I've noticed a trend in the younger generation. Specifically, you and I both have kids. I got one that's a freshman in college, and yours is going on to college, who just got a soccer scholarship.
That's right. My daughter Lucy will be playing soccer in the fall at Stephen F. Austin State University. Yeah, thank you for remembering that, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations. And I know what a big deal that is, because my daughter swims for Northern Arizona University, which is Division I as well. And but so we have that in common. But what's really interesting is how much they care about the environment. And the environment has never been a overwhelmingly huge topic for a lot of people. We talk about it and then we move on. We, just like what you said, we talk about it, then we cut something out and we throw it in the trash instead of recycling it. It goes along with that. But the younger generation coming through now, I think, are going to demand changes to our industry. And
Oh, absolutely.
speaking for myself, I am a big SUV guy. I drive a Jeep Wrangler. I love going off-roading. It's just, some of my passion. But I've been wanting an electric vehicle forever, but I don't want a car. So the new Hummer has just been released, and I actually reserved a Hummer for 2023. It's all electric.
Whoa, 2023. So 2 years away, you've got an electric car coming, and it's a Hummer. I had no idea the Hummer was coming out with an electric vehicle.
Oh, it is, Sid. You're going to have to go check it out. It is unbelievably gorgeous. And but then as soon as I looked that up, then Jeep Wrangler announces in 2024 they are coming out with an all electric Wrangler, and I'm going, okay. So what's clearly happening is all these automotive companies are changing direction and moving in the electric path.
Sure. Well, okay. So the car costs a little bit more money, but in your part of the world, and gas is over $3 a gallon. In Texas, it's over $2.50. Recently spiked all the way up to $3.09. You pay a little bit more for a car, but you're going to save a lot of money in the cost of gas. And everywhere you look, Tesla is doing it. I assume the charging mechanism is the same, but everywhere you go, there are charging stations.
Yeah.
Special parking spots for charging stations. Like the shopping mall down the street from us recently took a parking lot and basically made it Tesla or electric car charging parking only. Yeah. So that's another indication it's coming.
Well, and what's interesting is I have my chief marketing officer, Leah Latini. She just purchased a car. And they were looking at a Range Rover, and they live in California. You want to talk about gas prices. Like they were looking at a Range Rover. They don't drive far, but they were looking at a Range Rover, and they bought a brand new Tesla. And I said, well, why? And she said, well, the cost of the Tesla, if I factor in the gas for the Range Rover, is actually less expensive than the Range Rover. Mm-hmm. And she said, and I could charge it in my own house. Which is awesome. But one thing I didn't know is when you go to a lot of these charging places, it still costs like $5 or $10 to charge.
Oh, it does? They charge you to charge?
That's what I've been told. Now, I haven't really gone up to one because I don't have an electric car, but I've been told that there's a charge to use those rapid chargers.
All right, I'm going to check. The next time I go, I'm going to check and I'll report back on whether or not.
Please do. I'm curious.
That's interesting, right? Everybody's got to make money somehow. So, Jeff, let's keep going. So, tell me, what do you think, like, if you could predict, like, what do you think is like a big change that's going to happen in our industry in 2021, 22?
Wow. Well, I do think that a lot of things are going to go digital. Mm-hmm. A lot of the, old school way of doing business is going to have to change. I do see like a lot of reps now, speaking from the rep side, I see a lot of reps some of them are still doing showrooms, but a lot of them are doing rolling showrooms now.
Yeah.
So that they can bring the product to you versus you going to the product. I think there's going to be a big change in our trade show industry, which is kind of a shame because I really enjoyed NeoCon, and I think it's still going to be a thing. I just don't know how big it will ever bounce back to.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of people say in the last 48 hours that NeoCon may just be a show full of reps because dealers and A&D aren't really sure if they're going, and the elevators are small. How are you going to get people up and down? I mean, so there's lots of questions around NeoCon. I'm excited for it. I actually booked my hotel yesterday. So,
oh, you're ahead of me. I got to find my hotel because usually I rent condos there, but since they moved the date, I don't have access to those condos. So, so now I got to find a hotel.
You figured, because you know what happens, right? Law of supply and demand is they start getting, but the price keeps going up and up and up. So I thought, I'm gonna go ahead and book it now. I can always cancel it, a couple of weeks beforehand if I decide not to go, or if the show gets canceled. So hopefully the show doesn't get canceled. I'm excited about it, but I do agree with you. I think there will be changes in trade shows, and wouldn't it be interesting if we went back to more regional trade shows like we used to have with MetroCon and Designer Saturday, and the what was the one in New York that they did? It would be interesting if we went back to those regional type shows that were more manageable as it relates to people, right?
Well, people and costs. I mean,
Yeah.
the cost to attend, well, not to attend, but to present at NeoCon is very expensive. But I still think that there needs to be a community.
Yeah.
And we need to start caring about others
Mm-hmm.
versus caring only about ourselves. We need to focus on the overall industry as itself instead of one aspect of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we need to kind of progress together. And, like people like your Embark, it's valuable services because people are going to have to change their behaviors. And they're going to be needing people like you that are going to be able to coach them on how to change those behaviors.
Yeah.
People like us that partner with people, like Embark or like Indeal.
Mm-hmm.
We're launching an entire new programming session with Indeal today, as a matter of fact, where we're going through and we're going to enhance their program inside of my resource library.
That's great.
So we're doing a lot of different things that are out there. I don't think that there is a time now for anybody to not throw something up against the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. Be more active, right? And be more innovative.
Yes.
Just be innovative. And
Yes.
hey, if you try it and it doesn't quite work out the way you want it, at least you tried and you learned
Yes.
from it so you can adapt and move forward, right?
Yep. Well, I've had more failures than I've had actual successes with my resource library.
Okay.
You just only see the good stuff.
Okay, should we turn this into a coaching session about the use of the word failure, Jeff? Because
Yes.
I don't believe in the word failure. I believe in success and learning.
Yes. Well, and basically when I look at the failures or the programs that did not function as I thought they would,
Perfect.
then that is a learning experience for me, but it doesn't stop me from thinking of more.
Yeah, that is,
and that's the difference.
That's awesome. Yeah. You can't let something that the result wasn't exactly what you wanted stop or prevent you from continuing to move forward and continue to try. Because, if Benjamin Franklin didn't keep trying, we wouldn't have electricity and a light bulb, right?
Yes.
He kept trying and look at the impact that had. The same, I know that's a really big example, but the same thing applies as it relates to the industry that we work in or any industry for that matter. Transformation comes by continuing to try, coming up with the idea and then continuing to try, right?
Yep.
All right. So it's your turn. You get to ask me a question.
Well, I think that it's really interesting because I think we're talking about literally the same things and moving in the same path. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of talk that's out there about dealers and their place in the world. How do you think dealers are going to have to change in which to remain relevant to clients within the digital world?
Okay. This is a great question. I talk about this a lot too. I get a lot of blank stares sometimes when I talk about this. So the first thing is, I think that as a dealer community, we need to stop focusing on selling product. And we need to start focusing on solving our customers' problems. The product is irrelevant. The product is a commodity. I'm sorry to anybody out there that manufactures product. And I love products and I love the design of them, but we need to start solving client problems and not just trying to sell a product. Because so many times when, you call and say, hey, Sid, I need to buy 500 chairs. Before I ever see you or talk to you again, I know exactly what chair I'm going to sell you. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to start talking to you. Well, tell me, Jeff, what kind of chair do you want? Do you want adjustable arms? Do you want a mesh back? Do you want a fabric seat? Do you want a mesh seat? Do you want a high back? Do you want a mid back? Do you want a biosynchro tilt? What do I asking you all these questions. Salespeople in our industry don't stop to say, well, hey, Jeff, tell me what's happening inside your business that is needing or generating the requirement for you to buy 500 new chairs.
Yeah.
That's a problem-solving question. If we can ask more questions like that to understand what's really going on with our customers, then we can truly solve their business problems and become a solution to them, right? Being a solution provider to them, right? The second thing is that, industry expert is really how I term that. You have to be an industry expert, and you do that by learning and education about what's going on inside our industry, solving customer problems. So 2 things. And then the third thing that I would say is you have to seek to be found rather than always trying to find. And what I mean by that is your customer, Mr. Dealer, Mr. Manufacturer, your customer is super smart now. Thank you, COVID, for that. And they're super tech savvy, and they know how to use Google in ways that they never knew how to use before 2020, right?
Yep.
And so there are statistics out there that say that 80%, and people that listening to the podcast have heard me say this quote before, 80% of the customers who are looking to buy have researched you, know about you, and know about your product before they ever reach out to you.
Yes.
And if you're not controlling the narrative of what they find, then you're being left behind. So what I mean by that is you got to go digital. You got to be a thought leader. You got to stand up and come out of the corner that you're hiding in and not sharing your voice. And you have to start producing content. If you want them to find you, which they can find you, you have to be a voice in your industry or in your market, talking about what you do and the problems you solve, not my $99 task chair that I'm running on special for 3 weeks and come and pick it up and, all that kind of stuff. Right. So digital strategy is one of the most important things that anybody could do right now, because your customers are smarter than they ever have been before.
Yeah, I would agree. It's interesting you mentioned that, because like a lot of manufacturers, when they're reaching out to me looking for new representation in a market, it used to be, what are the lines they have? What's their split between calling on dealers, calling on end users, calling on whatever? Now they're looking at them going, do they have a Facebook account for their company? Do they have Instagram? Do they have LinkedIn? How many posts have they done in the last month to 2 months? And like, they are now cyber stalking them long before they ever talk to them.
So the customers are doing that too, right? So you see it happening from the manufacturer. And again, this is about getting in the game, because the digital footprint is so important, and you need to control the narrative. And to every marketing department out there, I would say, if you're not supporting your salespeople with content, then you need to be. You need to be creating content for them to share. And that's honestly, I would tell any office furniture dealer right now, hire a marketing person, hire a content creator, hire a marketing person to help you confirm your brand, communicate know your customer, and communicate to your customer in a digital way. Because if you don't, you're not going to be discovered, and your competition will be discovered.
There's a lot of great examples of that. Custer hired a marketing person 3-4 years ago, and that person, their brand awareness has skyrocketed. I mean, it's been very successful for a lot of different dealers out there that have a marketing person on staff. And
the ones that are having the most success are the ones that aren't selling.
Yes.
They're adding value, and they're sharing industry related information, and thought leadership is really what they're doing. And they're not selling. Now, they may be using their products in the background and highlighting their products, but they're not selling their products. So hire a marketing person. It'd be one of the best decisions you ever made.
Yeah. Same with us. You hired one and I hired one. I tried to even hire yours, but she wouldn't come with it. So.
Hey, marketing is important, right? I think marketing, it's got a lot of benefits to hiring a marketing person, especially those that are digital savvy.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree.
So Jeff,
I think that's the new world.
We probably got about 10 minutes left. So I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'll let you ask me one more question. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So, what advice would you give to a salesperson that would help them be more successful in 2021 and 2022?
Oh, that's a great question. I would have to say, and it's going back to the same thing that we've talked about before, technology is key. They need to learn how to become more proficient in every aspect of technology, even their laptops, their cell phones, and every message that they send out needs to be consistent. They need to be authentic. I think people like people. They like dealing with real people. And that, kind of comes back to the, what we were talking about earlier before we started recording, that Dr. Todd Dewitt. And that's what he is all about, is authenticity. And I think now more than ever, you have to have trust, and it's hard to build trust through a Zoom call. So,
totally agree.
I don't know about you, but I'm wearing shorts. I may be wearing a dress shirt, but I'm still wearing shorts underneath
That would make two of us, my friend. Doesn't
exactly.
look like it. I mean, we look good, honestly. I
Yeah.
think we both have on green shirts. That's kind of ironic. We're both wearing green shirts.
Well, it's the MRL green. I got to support the brand.
Actually, I did that for you today, Jeff. I wore my green to
There you
support
go.
MRL. It's not quite lime green, but I did it anyway.
But no, I think that's the biggest thing that I would say to a salesperson is the time of acting is kind of over. And now you need to be able to read people. You need to be able to present solutions, not products. And you need to be, your authenticity just needs to be the key feature of who you are.
100%.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
All right. Your turn.
Oh, my turn for a really good one here. Okay. So Embark started, and this is not my question, but you started how many years ago?
June the 1st will be 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay. So you started 4 years ago. In those 4 years, what has been the biggest trend that you have actually seen? Because I do know you do the trend report, but what has been the biggest trend change within our industry?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the biggest trend change in our industry, like a work environment trend, like the design trend kind of thing like that?
Yeah, I think we're moving a little bit away from what we've been talking about with the dealer trends, but yeah, I'm thinking, like from the product trends.
It's a really interesting question. This is going to be tough. This is going to be tough for me to answer. So, I would say one of them, I don't know that it's a change, but I think there's maybe two. So there's been I think a significant awareness about biophilia and what it really means. Because most people will say, if you ask them previously, they would say, well, that's about putting plants in a work environment. Well, it's not. I mean, that's one component of it, but it's a lot more, right? It's about really bringing the outside in. And because it's been talked about so much and people are really showing examples of it, and you have companies that are popping up like Quiet Earth Moss that are actually doing things like this, so that's just one aspect of it. And designers are talking about it. You see carpet companies really talking about how you can incorporate biophilia in carpet by using different textures and making it look like grass and then sand and then water, which are all components of biophilia that really bring it in. And I think that there's a direct correlation to the fact that we know we feel better when we go outside and the sun is shining and we breathe fresh air, and making the work environment feel that way. And I think because more people are talking about it, it's become a more popular and very relevant trend, because we are happier when we're in nature and we feel better. And I think it's great to see that come into the work environment. I think the other trend, and there are a lot of them, but I think the other trend that I think is really changing and really becoming talked about a lot, especially now, is going to be inclusion. And inclusion of those people on spectrums that we've never talked about before, including ADHD and autism and things like that. Kay Sargent at HOK talks a lot about neurodiversity, and this is very similar to that. But, one of the things that's going to happen as people start to return to the workplace is that businesses are going to have to address, and that we can help address as an industry, is anxiety. And fear about returning to work. And how do we make our workplaces comfortable and inviting that people want to come back to work? But as leaders, we have to start asking the questions and understanding that several of our employees have been stuck at home for a year by themselves. And there's anxiety around that. And we need to understand how to address that. And I think as an industry, we play that mental wellness. We play a role in that, with helping our clients to find and to design spaces that are going to be inviting and welcoming to people as they return to the workplace.
I think both of those are amazing topics to talk about, because you're right. I used to travel every single week, and now I'm doing 2 trips in May, and my last trip was in Detroit, Michigan, and I ended up getting COVID on that trip. So there is anxiety even for me to go onto a plane and to fly to a different city and to be around people that I'm not around. It's not a fear of me catching it because I've already had it and I know what that's kind of like, but it's kind of a fear of what's the like second part of that.
Yeah.
You know,
What's
do I give
next?
it to my kids and how would I feel if I did that?
Mhm.
And so I think that there's a lot of anxiety. The biophilia product, the moss and everything else, I will tell you a great example of that. We walked into yesterday. I had one of my sales guys was in town with his girlfriend, and I had just met his girlfriend, and I was giving them a tour of our country club. And we walked in, and we have a gym that is like off the charts from a style standpoint.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. When you walk in, there's wall graphics, there's glass doors so you can see all the different gym components and everything else. It's fantastic. But the only thing that she commented on was we do have an entire moss wall. And
Really?
she said, "Oh, wow, that is really cool." And it really stands out amongst everything else that we actually have
Mhm.
there. And so I totally agree with you. It gives you a calm feeling just even the minute you see it.
Yeah.
And so it's really exciting. It's really exciting. I do love those changes that are coming.
So Jeff, I got one last question for you.
Sure.
Have you been hanging out on Clubhouse? Do you know what Clubhouse is?
I have not, but I actually have seen several of your emails that talk about Clubhouse,
Yep.
but I have not hung out on it yet, mainly from a time standpoint. I have, and you know me, I love new technology.
Yep.
I've got a remarkable tablet now. I don't know if you have one of those, but if you don't have one, you need to go buy one like right now.
Okay.
It's for taking all of my notes and
Mhm.
everything else. It puts them immediately on my computer. It puts them on my
Mhm.
phone.
Which
It
tablet
is
is that?
incredible. It's called the Remarkable. It actually looks
Oh, I've
just
seen
like
this
that.
advertised. I have seen this.
Yes.
And you write freehanded and then it turns it into text to type.
Yep. Yep. And so, and it actually, when you write on it, it makes it, you feel like you're actually writing on paper.
So how much was it?
$600 all in with the case and everything else.
Okay. I'm gonna have to check it out. I
Yep.
just got an iPad Pro Max thing that has the keyboard on it, but
Yep.
I hate writing on it, right? I don't like the way it feels when I write on it.
No, so and that's why I was writing on my iPad, but you're writing on glass, which
Yep.
you're technically writing on glass here, but they've textured it so
Oh.
that it actually sounds like you're writing on paper, and
Hmm.
it's not. It's just really interesting. So
Feels okay.
you'll love it. I bought one now for my entire company, so my entire
Okay.
company has
Can I be adopted by your company and you buy me one?
one. Anything's possible. Anything's possible. But you know, I think that it's to go back to your question, and now I drew a blank as to where we we're
Clubhouse.
going. But Clubhouse was a technology that I want to check out because I have seen you write about it and I've seen you talk about it. I just have yet to get into it. Give me a synopsis of what it is.
Do you have an iPhone?
I do.
Okay, yeah, so it's iPhone only, but however, in June, it should be available to Android users as well. So my message to anybody that's thinking about Clubhouse or thinking of it as a typical social media platform, it's not a typical social media platform. There's so much happening out there and so much value being provided. But here's what I would say. Your customers are out there. Like next Wednesday, there's a room that I have on my calendar that's called How Architects Are Using Clubhouse. I wonder if anyone in our industry would find that interesting. Right. I mean, I popped into a room not too long ago that there was probably 50 corporate real estate executives in this room, from CBRE to JLL to Cushman and Wakefield. You know, they were talking about the future of corporate real estate and the impact of corporate real estate to space, right? I mean, how COVID is impacting corporate real estate. Well, that's a really interesting conversation that maybe we would want to be a part of, right?
Yep.
And then there, you know, you could go, you're in Phoenix. So if you're a salesperson in Phoenix, you could go to Clubhouse and you could type in Phoenix, and anything associated with Phoenix would come up, both individuals and groups or clubs as they're called. And how great would it be if you stumbled upon a group that said Phoenix Networking?
Yep.
You can click on that group and all of a sudden you go in and you audio meet other people that live in Phoenix, and gosh, maybe one of them could be your client or a potential client, or maybe a referral to a client, right?
Yep.
And I mean, it's off the charts. The opportunity for it is off the charts, and it's in beta. There's only 10 million people on the platform right now, and it's only going to grow and get bigger and better. And so I know people think, oh, it's just a drain. I don't have time for it. And Sid, how do you spend so much time on it? I have a strategy around it, and I'm very intentional about how I use it, but it can help you generate business. It can help you network. It can help you meet new people that can lead to new business. It can help you connect with architects and interior designers in different ways. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've met in our industry that I didn't even know existed.
Well, there's a lot of them out there, aren't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so I just downloaded it right now when you were giving me the overall.
Since you're in my phone, it should, if you'll register your username, it should let me know that, because it's an invitation only platform. It should let me know that you've signed up, and I can let you in for free.
Oh, perfect.
Let you in the back door. So
yeah. I'll take it. I'll take it. Then we'll talk about that remarkable.
Absolutely. I should have bargained. Thank you for that, Jeff. I should have bargained a Clubhouse invitation for a remarkable. Yeah. Anyways, hey man, it was a pleasure. I appreciate you being here today. Lots of great information. I love the banter back and forth and the open Q&A. It's always fun to do something a little bit different. So
perfect.
I hope I get to see you maybe in October, Jeff. It'd be nice. It's been a year and a half, I think, since I've seen you in person.
I was trying to get in to see, to come into Dallas for a day, but I unfortunately just the day that I wanted to come in is just not available for me. But I will be in soon. I'm sure I'm going to do some travel, and I do need to see some of the manufacturers that are in the Dallas market. So we'll arrange a get together for sure.
All right, man. I appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Sid. Appreciate you.
Take care, buddy.
All right.